Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's a chess show on Pod TV. My name is Sasha Star, and our guest today is Professor Ken Regan. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Thank you very much for having me on again.
Okay, so we are living now through a very interesting tournament, Grand Chess Tour
Hmm.
in Warsaw. It's a Rapid and Blitz tournament. The leader is so far, as I understand, is Hans Niemann. Uh,
Even though,
Yeah, Caruana is trying to reach the leading pack, which includes, of course, also the Wesley So. We have also Fedoseev. We have a few players. It's very, very strong. One of the strongest tournament, frankly.
I
We
will.
are recording it on a Friday after the first day of Blitz, and previously played three rounds of rapid chess. Right?
Right. Yeah.
What's the most interesting games you think you should show?
Well, the game I have one game from there, and lots of games from the Sigemen tournament where Carlsen won.
Okay, yeah,
Let's start with the actual world champion before we get to the world number one rated player still, who
okay.
actually gained two rating points in Sweden to put himself back over 2840. So, but it Neiman, by the way, it's the Grand Chess Tour uses a scoring system of 2 points for a win in the rapid, 1 point for a win in the blitz.
Yes,
And Neiman lost his last three blitz games, but still leads overall.
unreal.
So amazing horse race there. Can you see Gukesh and Javokir?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so this game from the Rapid yesterday, actually Wednesday, um, attracted a lot of attention because um, it was the first challenge between the people who have the next World Championship match, Sindarov as challenger against Gukesh. And they play an interesting it's a quiet variation of the Carol Can. Um, and I don't know. To my mind, black is already fine, but at any rate, um, black achieves a fine game in this position and never really lets go. So okay, so white decides I'll sacrifice a pawn with check rather than just castle out of it. Castling out of it was the computer's preferred thing to do, but here we go. Okay, we shed a pawn with check. Um, but white has the two bishops and greater activity to compensate. Gukesh unfazed. This, by the way, is a slightly slower rapid pace, 25 minutes up front and 10-second increment per move, giving you 35 minutes to reach turn 60. So Gukesh is, in fact, already significantly ahead of time as well. And I don't know, black looks fine. Both players castle. Black has a pawn and has the initiative as far as I can see. The computer rates it equal if white plays c5, but white doesn't play c5. And now Gukesh just starts out playing his opponent in this game. So now white has the nice bishop on g2, but it's kind of striking air. Unless white can really get something going against b7, the real story is the dark squares. So in particular, can black take over d4 and c5 in this position? And then also, although black's pawns on the king side are compromised, they are also mobile. So white tries to stave that off right away, but it doesn't succeed. It actually has the effect of allowing black's pawns to have come forward, and now white's bishop is spiked. But now white, however, can challenge for the dark squares and perhaps do a lever with g4 on the king side. So black is a pawn ahead, so endgames are good. So we evict white's queen from that diagonal. If white had played here, then queen d4 really does evict white's queen from the diagonal. So white decided to try coming in through h5 instead. Okay, queen h5 is a real threat in this position. what do you do as black? Well, you just bring your own queen to the defense. And now Sindarov decided to go va-bank. Now, the other thing that needs to be said, though, is that Gukesh did run himself down on time. So, in fact, Gukesh took almost all the rest of his time to probably decide not to play h6, which he was probably considering playing before. So, queen d4. Now, so Sindarov decided, okay, let's do a double-edged attack with my opponent in time pressure. But wait a second, the clock reset itself. So actually, there's probably an issue that I'm getting bad data from some of these readings too, and I have to watch out for that. My scripts do warn me when a player has used negative time. It's probably this.
Oh.
So anyway, okay. So white's down a piece. Can white get the kingside pawns rolling? Can black untangle? This isn't that bad for white. And this is forcing black to play h5 to stop white from infiltrating. But now, the funny thing is the computer just wants white to sit pat and not allow pins on the h2 to b8 diagonal, and says that then white can undertake things maybe, but instead queen e2 wins a pawn but allows black to untangle. And so here, in fact, Gukesh could have chopped on f5, but understandably, now I believe the clock readings that they're down to seconds and running on the 10-second increments. So the game gets a bit allegro for a while. But black has an extra piece, and black's king is not in that much danger. So eventually, white's play runs out, and black's passed pawn is going to carry the day. So overall, a very well-commanded performance by the world champion, Gukesh. So, yeah, just in time to stop white's pawn. And white has a very mean choice here. White can make a queen. Black just takes it, and if white captures, then we see why rook behind passed pawn is so strong. And white's rook will be bottled up, and then black's king will just eat all the rest of white's pawns. So after rook h1, a2, and then king d6, it's game over, or b5, game over. Yep. So okay, so nice performance by the world champion. Now, the other games I have are all from Sigeman, and I'm first going to show how to beat Magnus Carlsen. So this is quite a sensation. Magnus Carlsen lost to Jordan van Foreest in a back and forth game, but where Foreest was really ahead for most of the game. So this shows that you can beat Carlsen if you carry the battle to him. And it must be said that Carlsen himself played enterprisingly by playing the knight off. Okay. So not going to go into one of these gioco piano tibias that people do nowadays. So actually queens have come off, but the position's unbalanced. Carlsen, as Van Foreest decided to allow Carlsen to mangle his pawn structure, but white has potential for great activity in all spheres of the board. Okay. So now there's the c pawns are weak and doubled, but they're passed. Black has two connected passed pawns potentially on the king side, but they have to get out of the box first. So very nice move here, maybe unexpected. It basically forces the win of an exchange. Otherwise, black can't hold the e pawn. So we win the exchange, but Carlsen has certain counterplay for it. Okay, but white, what's going to turn this position is whether white can maneuver the bishop to a good square with which to take aim at black's king side, and or be able to usher the c pawn into the game. So white has it's only a pawn for the exchange, and black has 2 knights. So white has definite advantage. Black should have played knight d5, but now black comes back, so white decides to repeat. Now knight d5. It's not on pre because of mate on the first rank, but this isn't as strong as it could have been beforehand. Computer wants black to play king f8. Let's not bother ourselves with why. White does win a pawn. Now, important to note that if white had captured this pawn, then we really do have an attack for black reminiscent of one of the Korchnoi-Kasparov games. This white actually is forced to get back
it was Korchnoi-Karpov.
Korchnoi-Karpov, that's right, yeah. So white would be forced to give back the exchange. So we've got this position, and finally white's bishop is wheeling around to the diagonal where it can pressure the e-pawn and win. So black has a pawn for the exchange, and it's all going to come down to tactics, though. Whether black can establish a fortress, a solid defense, or whether white can get enough activity to break through. So around here, I was expecting that white was going to win. And indeed, any move, rook c3 first would have been a little better. Rook c3 now. And the players have managed, players have a fair bit of time. But I'm going to just want to show you the end game that results from this. Now here, white can win by the move g4. But it takes a lot of nerve to expose your pawn where it can possibly be traded. But the point is it takes away the square f5 and makes g3 for the king. So instead, white got the bishop out of the way of potential forks. But now white has lost one of the pawns. And white's only hope now is to be able to win this position. Now, this should just be a draw. Back when we had the 7-piece server online from Russia, we would have known, exactly what the freedom is for black to draw. But black starts going into the zone of one mistake by allowing the knight to be separated from the king. Black should have tried to bring the knight to f6, and then I'm sure a handshake would have come pretty carefully. So white stopped the knight from going to d6 now. So now black's knight is cut off, and even on d4, which is computer sees as a mistake, it's actually not making any progress toward this. Rook d8 would have been more effective. So this is now extremely tactical. There are sequences of moves that either do or do not liberate the knight. So now the knight can go into the rear guard, but then black is going to fall victim to a mating attack if the knight goes too far back. So as the computer will show you, both players pitch the game back and forth, but it's ultimately Van Foreest that has the last laugh in this position. Rook c5. Now, knight a7 is the only move to draw in this position, but you have to have nerves of steel and a computer to play knight a7 here, voluntarily putting the knight. The point is, though, is that if white goes after the knight with the king, then black can lose the knight, but will be able to promote a pawn on the king side. So now black is in a bind because can't take an h3 because you lose the knight with white's king too close. And after a few more moves, this is very nice. It's mate. Now, however, though, white's only win in this position is to play king f5 and actually repeat moves. So the actual winning move in this position was to play rook g2. In the 5-piece server, it's the only winning move. But it's extremely hard to calculate these things. And black should have played knight b6, and the knight can live because black's g-pawn stops white's king from moving toward the knight. But now the knight is going to be lost to some checks, and black is in Zugzwang here. Either has to lose the g pawn or play king h4 and then rook d1. So Carlsen gave up. So amazing win over the former world champion, but it made Carlsen mad, and Carlsen stormed back to win 3 straight games. So I'm going to show the first of those straight games because Carlsen actually got into some trouble against the one of the lower rated players in the tournament, and she's not even the highest female player in China, Zhu Jinier. So Carlsen playing his usual, Katie bar the door style, preserving potentialities in the position, not committing himself. But black is objectively doing fine. And over the next 10 moves, Jinier really plays very accurately. And okay, never mind that question mark. But now starts playing very enterprisingly with g5 to stake out space, and g4 make more space, and then h5. So locked white's pieces in, not afraid of what's going on the with bishop h6. And now comes a very interesting juncture in the game. So the computer, and this is reproducing what I observed on the day. If you look at the computer eval, the right way to play for black, according to Stockfish 18, looks suicidal. So first play f5 and allow white's queen into g5, or it's going to win the h5 pawn. Okay, so black is now getting attacked on the king side. Let's ignore the attack and put one of our knights further on side, not even pressuring e5. Okay, white plays rook f1, which is an attacking move, and this pawn, doesn't really mean anything. Now it's actually showing a different first move, but when I ran this reproduction before, or maybe it'll show it in a minute or two, wants black to play king h8, which is basically hanging a pawn with check. Okay, white captures. And now, however, this is advantage black because black has actually freed some of the pieces that were blocking the action of the rook. And then after white goes back to defend the c pawn, now black actually has a raging attack. Okay, this isn't showing us +1 for black the way it did the previous time I ran Stockfish 18. Sometimes these things depend on hash table values and chess programs. But just a very interesting juncture. The rest of the game, however, though, shows why Carlsen is Carlsen. It's only 10 or so more moves. So she actually opted to preserve her bishop, but it's not cracking the whip in the position. And now white was able to fix a weakness and still be able to pressure the bishop. Well, both sides make inaccuracies, but black makes something which is more important than an inaccuracy. Black makes a misjudgment in trading off the knight when rook f3 keeps black's activity going. A strong exchange sacrifice. So this allows too many good white pieces to live. And black rightly decided to sacrifice and exchange in several different ways and got some activity, but didn't follow through. Carlsen's able to evaluate the danger in this kind of position. So black actually has to play king f8, a very inscrutable move to keep the balance. Instead, e3, seemingly cutting off a check, I guess. I'm not sure what that was meant to accomplish, but it just has to be pure calculation at this point. And at this point, black has become unglued, and now it's over. So interesting play by Carlsen. Now I want to show, so Carlsen won a playoff, a blitz playoff against Erigaisi. And if I have time, I'll show the last game of the playoff. But what I absolutely want to show, last 8 minutes I guess we have, are how Carlsen handled Yagis Erdogmus, another 14-year-old sensation who's broken into the 2,700 club and definitely maintained it in this tournament, because as you see, it a plus score in this game in the 8th round. But Carlsen plays very sagely against him to reach an endgame that has some famous ancestors. So the last two things I'm going to show are tales of two endgames. And I think both knight against bishop. So anyway, so Carlsen plays for activity. It was said on Twitter, an even endgame, you just can't survive against Carlsen. And Carlsen plays very simply to just stay one tempo ahead of what Black is doing. So Black's a tempo down, and we're going to keep Black that way. Black took the e-pawn while we play rook c7 and have lots of activity. So, okay. Now Black has a compromise in the pawn structure, and that eventually becomes the theme of the position. So White's king is, Black has a slightly compromised pawn structure, and White's king is able to take over the d4, e4 center squares. And that's enough to keep playing on, even though the computer says less than a quarter pawn advantage. So Black is trying to maintain a dark square blockade with the light square bishop. So all of Black's pawns are in dark squares, which is good, but Black has one weak pawn on f6, and White's king sitting on d4 eventually has the potential to penetrate on either side of the board. Now, Erdogmus here, is close to equalized, but Erdogmus also gets impatient here and thinks, okay, I can just slap a fortress on the board, but it's an incomplete fortress. This unnecessarily gives White the advantage of bishop against knight and oversight of 2 parts of the board. But it must be said, the knight on d6 looks like it's an impenetrable fortress. And well, Erdogmus evidently decided not, because Erdogmus put the knight. So the problem with the knight on d6 is White's king may be able to get to d5. But it's right here that Erdogmus lost patience and got into the zone of one mistake. Black should just play king d6 and sit tight. I mean, that was the point. You maneuvered the knight so you could put your king on d6, right? You just have to be consistent and just be flexible and make sure you can respond to things. This gives White the advantage on an outside passed pawn. And now Black is, in practical terms, Black is in real trouble. Okay, we played d6. So East knight e6, it's okay, even though White is outside passed pawn, Black can hold that. By the way, g6. And now here's the key point. So what Black has to do, the key square on this board, believe it or not, is a6. So it's a race. Black has to can hold the position only by a race to prevent White's bishop from getting to a6 in time. So Black therefore has to play this in the order f4. Okay, and then, so what am I talking out of my hat about bishop on f6? Well, no, let's take a look at the way the game went. The way the game went was Black played king e7, White played king b5, then f4, then king a6, then f3, then king takes a7, and after f2, White is bishop a6. So now Black has lost. So b5 trying to jam that up, but Carlsen's too accurate a player. So now, okay, so Black gets a queen, great, but h3. Now Black's not going to get a queen. Black got the knight out of the way so the bishop can go to h3, and this is now over. Okay, all right. So definitely chess knowledge on Carlsen's part coming through. But the very best thing that I have here, in my opinion, is the way that Andy Woodward failed to beat Erigaisi after winning the whole time. I'll just take some snapshots of the game here. Erigaisi played crazy chess with advancing pawns on both sides of the board, but Woodward calmly took the pawns, took the position, and started hunting Black's king, and eventually reached what should have been a winning ending. Look at White's king here having gone out to g4. But okay, there were inaccuracies on both sides. So we got to an end game where White played one careless move. White is to play king h1 and then has enough counterplay to draw. Instead, king h3 repeated, put White's king in the mouth of the lion with g5. Okay, so now White has to capture that. Basad tells g4 is mating attack. And after, again, some more repetitions, Black now has a solid extra pawn and has covered all the implicit threats that White could have. And not only that, Black has, White play king g3 might have been similar. Black has this lovely way to get rid of the queens. Okay, so this is a winning position for Black, but you have to execute it. And there's one point of execution that Black missed. And this is my favorite example of the elbowing theme that has been written about in Chess Life and maybe New in Chess as well by Joel Benjamin and Grandmaster Alex Fishbein. So it comes up right here. So the key point of this position is that Black has to deny the b6 square to White's king so that White's king cannot reach h1 in time. And that sounds like an absolutely crazy thing to say, but the computer anyway sees immediately that it's true. So the way to win this position is to play king d6, capture, and then not h4, but play king c5. And that's a body check against White's king going to b6. Now, if White plays king g7, the point is Black is able to redeploy the knight this way. Okay. And is also keeping White's king out of things, and Black will gain a few tempi in what ensues. But the other way to play is if White plays king a6. Okay, now White tries to get the piece down, but Black now is going to be able to trap White's bishop. It takes a few moves, but if we calculate this out, okay, okay, now we want to play knight e2, king c2, knight. This is with gain of tempo. Okay, and White's king is one square short of being able to trap Black's knight in the corner. But with the game continuation, playing h4 first, now White was able to play king b6, and that makes this whole thing work in time. So Black, okay, is able to track down the bishop, but White's king goes to d2. And then if knight g3, okay, and actually Black has to be careful not to lose this position. Whoops, not the king to e3, sorry, silly. And take a queen, bishop takes, and now Black is actually losing. Well, Black would not capture the bishop, and Black's knight is trapped in the corner. So this is the most extreme example of the body check theme that I have ever seen.
Yeah, very instructive.
To draw. So that's what I have to show.
Thank you so much, Ken. It was very, very instructive games and enjoyable at the same time. Mm-hmm. So we'll continue to watch this tournament and many others starting soon. And we'll talk about it next week, same place, same time.
Spring has finally come. Best of health and getting outside.
Yeah, excellent. Thanks a lot, Ken. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Okay.